So don't any reporter ask me again about Hasan Piker. It's not what November is about. Republicans are trying to make it. They're trying to divide us. And we got to stop letting them try to divide us. I don't agree with Hasan Piker on a lot of stuff. And I really don't agree with him on some of the women things he said. And I'm still trying to figure out, is it the reason he exercises and looks buff is why he has so many followers. But having said that, I want to talk to you for a minute about what November is about.
All right, that was Debbie Dingell. She's a Democratic representative from Michigan. She has complicated views on Hasan. I'm going to tell you why she's not fully against him, something that's not shared often. But we also have a list of traitors. All the Democrats trying to make sure that Abdul al-Sayed loses by attacking Hasan and Abdul's connection to Hasan. They have betrayed all of the Democratic voters. And they did it for obvious reasons, because they're paid by the Israeli lobby. That's also why they have the same exact talking point. So we'll give you that list, and we'll give you all the complications that come out of this story. And then I want to talk about the press's reaction on whether they're ever going to question anything Mike Rogers does. So Anna, tell us the whole story.
So this all really started with, at first, right-wingers, and then later establishment Democrats intentionally twisting Hasan's words in regard to what he had to say about wrongfully conflating Zionism and the acts against humanity that's been carried out by Israel with the entire Jewish population. It's a point that we make on this show on a regular basis. It is unfair to treat Jewish people as a monolith. But those statements were taken out of context and twisted specifically to hurt Abdul al-Sayed, who was campaigning with Hasan Piker at his side at some of these campaign events. With that in mind, let's take a look at what Hasan had to say.
People don't want Israel any longer. And if Jews in America keep putting this idea out there that they are singularly invested in Israel, eventually someone's gonna come around and take action, not against the state of Israel, mind you, but against American Jews.
So you could argue that he could have articulated that better, but I know exactly what he meant because we've made the same point over and over again. There are plenty of Jewish Americans who are against what Israel has been doing. There are plenty of Jewish Americans who do not believe in the Zionist project or the idea that Palestinians should be persecuted in an apartheid state. There are plenty of Jewish Americans who have been speaking out against Israel as aggressively as we've been speaking out against Israel on this show. And to conflate them is unfair to them and is anti-Semitic. Now, with that in mind, as Dropsite News explains, Piker's remarks were subsequently portrayed by right-wing accounts and politicians, including Republican Senate nominee Mike Rogers, as a call for violence against Jews. Piker even told the Washington Post what he actually meant in his statement. He was warning that associating American Jews broadly with Israel's actions could fuel anti-Semitism, much as Muslims in the United States have been associated with Islamic terrorist groups, which is also disgusting and intentionally done in order to drive hatred toward the Muslim population. Now, subsequently, mainstream media ran with that narrative. Of course they did. Our media is Zionist owned. I know people think that that's a controversial thing to say, but it is demonstrably true. But yeah, the media ran with this notion that Hasan was trying to direct violence toward the Jewish community. Fox News contributor Hugh Hewitt literally said last Friday, quote, "I can't stop talking about him," which might mean you have a problem. And of course, Hasan's comments are being directly tied to Abdul al-Sayed because that was the whole point, okay? They're using Hasan specifically to attack Abdul al-Sayed to hurt his chances of winning a Senate seat in Michigan. So all of this led to, well, later I should note, there was a coordinated campaign of establishment Democrats who also came out. They put out very similar statements condemning Hasan while citing the same statement, twisting his words, making him out to be someone who's directing violence towards Jewish people. So this wasn't just a right-wing thing. This wasn't just a legacy media thing or mainstream media thing. Democrats got involved, thus helping the Republican in this Senate race. I want to be very clear about that. So let's take a look at this list. Our new associate producer, Will Hurd, please say thank you because he worked really hard to put this list together. And include all of the money that these Democrats have taken. So here's the list of the Democrats who are on the record not only attacking Hasan, but doing so in a way that obviously hurts Abdul al-Sayed's chances of winning the Senate seat. You've got Senator Elisa Slotkin, who's taken over $500,000 in bribes from the Israel lobby. Unsurprisingly, Josh Gottheimer, who's taken $2.3 million from the Israel lobby. Jackie Rosen, more than $2 million. Susie Lee, nearly $1 million. Hakeem Jeffries, I mean, we've talked about Hakeem Jeffries quite a bit on this show this week. And he's taken, I mean, that number's actually a little low. Last time I did the research on this, it was close to $1.7 million in bribes from the Israel lobby. Richie Torres, over $2 million in bribes. These are all Democratic lawmakers who went out of their way to attack, okay? Allegedly just attack Hasan, but they did it in a way that clearly hurts Abdul al-Sayed's chances. And of course, the total amount of Israel lobby bribes toward the Democrats who have been speaking out, $21,601,455. Israel lobby working overtime to buy these disgusting, loathsome, corrupt politicians. So as you saw, 2 Michigan lawmakers are on that list. Representative Hillary Scholten, and then you also have Senator Elisa Slotkin. So Scholten has specifically said, quote, "I will not campaign with someone who continues to associate with Hasan Piker." Okay, great. So you're helping the Republican win as a Democrat, because at the end of the day, you're the same thing, aren't you? Democrat, Republican, as long as you guys are part of the establishment, taking that donor cash, you're the same thing. So she's gonna go and root for her team. That's what she's doing. Unlike Dingell, Michiganders, like Dingell, I should say, Michiganders are tired of this. So one Michigander even told the Washington Post in response to Scholten's comments, quote, "Your inflammatory rhetoric has nothing to do with creating a better economic future for the people of West Michigan and everything to do with protecting the pipeline of our tax dollars to Israel." And I actually want to go to the Dana Bash video now, because Dana Bash, of course, loves to attack Hasan Piker. She's a hardcore Zionist, so much so that she's actually starting to get a lot of criticism from CNN employees for being too biased in covering any topic having to do with Israel. What's amazing, Cenk, is that she herself made a similar point to Hasan, and I want to show you the receipts. Let's take a look.
You may not have heard of left-wing streamer Hasan Piker until this year, when Democratic Michigan Senate candidate Abdul al-Sayed began campaigning with him. Just a reminder, Piker has excused sexual violence from Hamas terrorists. Now, the controversial relationship between the two entered new territory this week after Piker said this.
If Jews in America keep putting this idea out there that they are singularly invested in Israel, eventually someone's gonna come around and take action, not against the state of Israel, mind you, but against American Jews.
Well, Piker made that comment that American Jews who support Israel are responsible for actions taken against them. A picture of a Jewish Michigan state legislator was prominently displayed.
Okay, now I want to go to, as I said earlier, Dana Bash's video where she's making a similar point to Hasan. Let's take a look at that.
American Jews in Congress who support Israel and support what you just said say that a lot of the actions by you and your government are making Jews in the United States unsafe. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, she's running for Senate in Michigan, said Benjamin Netanyahu has made us less safe. He has frankly put Jews in an uncomfortable position across the country. Have you?
Well, it's made her uncomfortable because she can't stand up for the truth. She's trying to probably excuse anti-Semitism. You know,
she's not. I just want to explain. She's somebody who supports Israel. She supports funding Israel, which is diminishing big time among Democrats and even some Republicans in the United States Congress.
Dana Bash is a joke. And by the way, Hasan Piker did not dismiss rape carried out by Hamas. He dismissed the notion that it was systematically happening as an act of war. which there was no evidence of. It doesn't mean that he said Hamas has never raped anybody, which is what she's trying to make it out to be. But okay, whatever.
Okay.
Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, well, first of all, Dana Bash has, to use her words, excused the sexual violence by the IDF.
She has.
That's literal. There's stories out about how, including from Israeli human rights groups, the Israeli press, about how Israel systematically rapes detainees, male detainees, female detainees, and they do it in vicious ways, as even the New York Times has reported. But Dana Bash never wants to report on anything Israel does wrong, because as now even her CNN colleagues acknowledge, she's a massive and radical Zionist. And despite the fact that she's a radical Zionist that excuses every war crime of Israel, she then says something that is identical to Hasan's. But okay, she said it in the form of a question, but apparently that question is so outrageous that Abdul al-Said should be canceled for Hasan suggesting the same exact thing. It's insane. But if you notice, she also said in the question that that's Haley Stevens' comment. Now, Haley Stevens is very pro-Israel, as Dana Bash pointed out. That's weird that when Haley Stevens was running as Abdul al-Said, Dana Bash and literally no one else in mainstream media as well ever made a big case about it. Hey, do you denounce Haley Stevens trying to get Jews killed in America? Oh, she's for Israel? And none of you said that. Same exact comments by Hasan. Hey, he's trying to get Jews killed in America. What's the difference? She's for Israel, he's against Israel in terms of their funding. And all of a sudden, Dana Bash goes from wonderful, perfectly reasonable comment to outrageous and trying to murder all Jews. What a preposterous liar she is. And every lie in foreign policy is told on behalf of Israel. Okay, but again, it's not just about Dana Bash. It's just one person in media, who cares? How many reporters asked Haley Stevens about those comments or suggested that they were somehow endangering Jews? Zero. How many reporters have asked that question when Hasan Piker said it? Literally every reporter in the country. So, gee, I wonder if this is coordinated. Gee, I wonder if it has to do with whether you support Israel or you don't. They just proved it to you. Full mask off moment. Now, speaking of mask off, how about Mike Rogers? Does anybody want to talk about Mike Rogers at all? The entire media, CNN, MS Now, and Fox News all magically agree. No, don't say anything about Mike Rogers. Don't ask him any questions. Don't talk about what he does. Don't talk about who he's connected to. Only Hasan Piker, only Abdul al-Said. Attack. Oh, gee, you guys sound so objective. Now, look, let's be fair, Anna. Maybe Mike Rogers is pure as the German snow and he's never done anything wrong or been associated with anyone that's done anything wrong. That's weird. Because Mike Rogers has been advocating for the Iran war since 2006. You did not hear that wrong. I didn't say 2026. 2006, 20 years ago. You know what he said back then?
That's all that matters. Cenk, that's all that matters. He supports the war in Iran. So
yep.
Republican, Democrat, who cares? Who cares? He loves the war machine. So let's do whatever we can to help him win, even if you're a Democrat. Disgusting.
Yeah. And you know what he said back then? He said, Iran is so close to having a nuclear weapon. We have to attack them right now. In fact, he used Benjamin Netanyahu's talking points over and over and over again for the last 20 years to try to start that war with Iran, having absolutely nothing to do with nukes that they did not develop in the last 20 years, as Mike Rogers has been lying about it on behalf of Israel for the last 20 years. So is anybody gonna ask him about being a warmonger? Is anyone gonna ask him about being preposterously wrong about all those allegations? Is anyone going to ask him to denounce someone who he is deeply connected to, Benjamin Netanyahu? Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has said a lot of terrible things and way worse than Hasan. He's referred to Amalek, and he's talked about Israel taking from the river to the sea. And we can go on and on, but you don't have to worry about what Netanyahu has said, because we can look at what Netanyahu has done. Killed over 75,000 people in Gaza, 175,000 injured. More child amputees in Gaza than the rest of the world combined. He starved kids to death, 23,000 dead children in Gaza, but not one reporter in America has asked Mike Rogers, do you denounce Benjamin Netanyahu? No, they think being friends and allies and, let's be honest, a servant of a genocidal maniac is wonderful and beyond reproach. You can't even think of asking a question about it. How dare you question that? But did you hear what a streamer said? Oh, it's the same exact thing Haley Stevens said and Dana Bash said. Shut up. We're trying to destroy people here on behalf of Israel. You guys are so obvious. Okay, now that's not all. I can go all day on this, but I'll give you one more for now, Anna. Mike Rogers has a guy on his staff in his youth outreach program that was part of the Young Republicans WhatsApp group where they said things like, I love Hitler. So are you gonna ask Mike Rogers, not about a guy he campaigned with, but a guy who's his employee working on this staff right now, who was connected to people who love Nazis? That seems deeply anti-Semitic. Shh, it doesn't matter if you love Nazis. It doesn't matter, nothing matters. It doesn't matter if you endanger Jews. They don't care about that at all. They don't even care if you're connected to Nazis. The only thing they care about is, do you serve Israel? If you do, we'll never ask any questions. We'll never ask you to denounce anyone. But if you don't support Israel, we will destroy you all in unison, all at the same time, all with the same talking point. But we are objective press. No, I wouldn't insult the Israeli press by calling you Israeli press. You're Israeli propaganda for the Israeli government. The Israeli press is way better than this disgusting crap in America that Israel forces upon us.
Yeah, in fact, Israeli media is like shockingly honest about what the government's intentions are because they're writing and broadcasting to the Israeli population, which overwhelmingly supports what the government of Israel is doing. So if you want the truth about what's actually gonna happen and what the Israelis are thinking, consume Israeli media. You will not be steered in the wrong direction, I promise you that. But let's go back to US media on this matter. And I wanna kind of start off by showing you this moment of Dana Bash interviewing Pramila Jayapal in late 2023. Take a look.
I've seen a lot of progressive women, generally speaking, they're quick to defend women's rights and speak out against using rape as a weapon of war, but downright silent on what we saw on October 7th.
And I've condemned what Hamas has done. I've condemned
specifically
all of the actions. Absolutely, the rape, of course. But I think we have to remember that Israel is a democracy. That is why they are a strong ally of ours. And if they do not comply with international humanitarian law, they are bringing themselves to a place that makes it much more difficult strategically for them to be able to build the kinds of allies, to keep public opinion with them. And frankly, morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another.
In fact, in that same interview, Pramila Jayapal brought up the amount of children, the number of children who had already been slaughtered at that point in late 2023 by Israel in Gaza. And Dana Bash's response was, at least you don't see Israelis raping Palestinians. Except, we all witnessed that horrific video featuring IDF soldiers gang raping a Palestinian hostage at one of their torture prisons. Every single one of those IDF soldiers had the charges dropped because the Israeli public was outraged that they might face criminal prosecution for doing on camera what we all saw them do. Okay, just wanted to make that point real quick. But I bring up that old video to show you what was the start of some of the former and now current CNN employees kind of turning on Dana Bash and realizing she's kind of lost the plot and she's too biased to cover this particular topic accurately. So Justin Baragona spoke to foreign and current CNN employees who aren't happy with Bash being completely biased in her Israel commentary, especially following October 7th. One CNN insider told Zateo, quote, I think that Dana, her background and her pattern of behaviors are pretty consistent. She's a huge advocate for the state of Israel and just doesn't really conceal that very well. No, she certainly does not. Baragona added that it's the way that Bash conducts herself on air that CNN sources pointed to as evidence of her personally crazy and biased approach toward covering Israel and Gaza, especially since the October 7th attacks by Hamas. And that is certainly evident by this piece from 2024. Take a look.
Many of these protests started peacefully with legitimate questions about the war, but in many cases, they lost the plot. They're calling for a ceasefire. Well, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, the day before Hamas terrorists brutally murdered more than 1,000 people inside Israel and took hundreds more as hostages. This hour, I'll speak to an American-Israeli family whose son is still held captive by Hamas since that horrifying day that brought us to this moment. You don't hear the pro-Palestinian protesters talking about that. We will. Now, protesting the way the Israeli government, the Israeli prime minister is prosecuting the retaliatory war against Hamas is one thing. Making Jewish students feel unsafe at their own schools is unacceptable, and it is happening way too much right now.
So referring to that very video that I just showed you, one former CNN staffer told Zateo, quote, you know, Dana Bash has said all these stupid things about how there was a ceasefire on October 6th, as if everything was just completely hunky-dory the day before the 7th happened. And that's a common trick that's played by Israel's supporters. They pretend as though Israel didn't have a policy of mowing the lawn where they would just go into Gaza and slaughter people. They don't talk about the fact that Israel would limit the amount of food and water allowed into the Gaza Strip. I mean, the persecution, the fact that there was that one protest of Palestinians where they just simply walked up to the border between Israel and Gaza and they got shot and killed just for doing that. The asymmetric type of situation Palestinians in Gaza find themselves in, where they're basically like in a fishbowl with no military equipment, certainly nothing close to what the Israelis have, no defense capability the way the Israelis have with the Iron Dome. And so they're just, out there, out in the open, readily available for the IDF to slaughter whenever they like, whenever they want. They've flattened Gaza. Like, Jake, the thing that's amazing to me is at this point, after you see the aerial footage of Gaza flattened, after it is obvious that the Israelis made good on their genocidal statements prior to flattening Gaza. They said it and then they did it. You still have people like Dana Bash defending them. What happened? I thought we were supposed to ignore those unhinged statements from those unhinged members of the Knesset because they're not actually gonna carry it out. But now that they've actually carried it out, Dana, do you have any thoughts about that?
And think about that. So we're all supposed to, the entire country, that's all that anybody's talking about, is supposed to care about what Hasan Piker, a streamer on Twitch, said. But when we say, but Ben Gvir and Smotrich said that they should commit genocide and murder everyone, don't talk about that. Shh. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean, what do you mean? Hasan's a streamer. They're in the cabinet. They're in the Israeli cabinet. They have incredibly important positions. Israel Katz has also said genocidal things. Netanyahu has said genocidal things. In fact, things like from the river to the sea that they said was the worst thing you could possibly say. Netanyahu did it and he's now in the middle of carrying it out. But whenever it's the Israelis, shh, don't say anything. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. Don't talk about it. Don't denounce it. Oh my God, a streamer said something. Let's all panic. So it's so obviously disingenuous. Now, Dana Bash in particular is so over the top. Women's rights groups haven't said anything about Hamas. Well, Dana, do you care about kids? My guess is she would say, oh, of course I support kids. Oh, but yet you haven't said anything about the 23,000 kids that Netanyahu and the Israeli government murdered in Gaza. Oh, no big deal. You saw there, 1,000 people on October 7th, and we were all pissed about it, right? And we're very clear on the record on it. The other day, somebody criticized us for being pissed about October 7th. No, of course I was pissed about that. We're for peace. We don't want anybody getting hurt. But then she turns around and going, 1,000 killed in Israel, worst thing since the Holocaust. 75,000 killed. According to the IDF's own internal numbers, 83% civilian kill ratio. Worse than Hamas, worse than Hezbollah, worse than any terrorist group in the world right now. That's what Israel did in Gaza. 75,000 dead, and she goes, oh, who cares? Who cares? They're just lowly Palestinians, right, Dana? They're not precious Israelis. They're not the same, right? Not to you. They're beneath you, right? That's why you don't care about them at all. Now, and then of course they always hide behind religion. Oh, it's the dirtiest trick they have. So, but wait a minute, you've heard us now level Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, but also Richie Torres and Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and Huckabee and all the radical Zionists, right? But wait, Wolf Blitzer is also on CNN, and he even worked for AIPAC. But you almost never see me mentioning Wolf Blitzer in this context. Why? Because Wolf Blitzer hasn't said anything crazy on air. We judge people based on what they say and what they do, not based on who they are. Now, on the other hand, people like Dana Bash are arguably deeply anti-Semitic. And she'll be like, oh, how dare you, right? Okay, well, let's prove it, right? We say it's about the government of Israel. Do not blame all Jews for it. That's crazy. 63% of Jewish Americans are opposed to the current government of Israel. And every time we say that, people like Dana Bash go, no, it's all the Jews. You're saying Jews. No, we're saying Israel. No, say Jews, it's all the Jews. No, Dana, it isn't all the Jews. They're not all maniacal, radical Zionists like you who enjoy genocides. In fact, they're opposed to it. But she lies over and over again. Anytime somebody criticizes Israel, she pretends they're criticizing Jewish people so she can hide behind Jewish people, so she can endanger Jewish people, just like she said, just like Haley Stevens said, just to protect their beloved Israel. And the reason they do that is because Zionism has turned into, especially for the radical Zionists, into an absurd cult. And okay, so that's all the media and all the Republicans, but the Democrats, one last thing about them. $21.6 million from Israel, and all the press again pretends, oh, that has nothing to do with them all supporting Israel and using their talking points at every turn, including John Ossoff, by the way. And then on top of that, remember that all those people attacking Abdul el-Sayed for his connections to Hasan, those Democrats have not attacked Mike Rogers. They have not pointed out anything about Mike Rogers or asked him to denounce anyone on his staff or Netanyahu. These people obviously get money from and serve Israel. That is super obvious to anyone, let alone a reporter. But the reporters in our country do the exact opposite, and what they say is, no, we're never gonna report the truth, and we don't care how many Palestinians are slaughtered, we don't care about their kids, and all we're gonna do is blame Hasan Piker and Abdul and make sure anyone opposed to Israel loses, right? Right? Dana Bash, have you asked one tough question of Haley Stevens? Have you asked one tough question of Mike Rogers? But again, it's not just Dana. Has anyone on cable news asked that question? Has any reporter in national media asked questions about Mike Rogers' connections to a genocidal maniac or potentially a Nazi on his own staff? Nope, nope. As long as you kneel to Israel, the radical lunatic Zionists, not Jewish Americans, and I know what she's gonna say. No, all Jews, right, Dana? That's what you say every time. Well, you don't speak for my Jewish friends, you don't speak for my Jewish family, you don't speak for any Jews other than your lunatic radical Zionist friends who think that a genocide is no big deal and slaughtering 23,000 kids is no big deal as long as Israel does it. But my God, what a streamer said is such a big deal, even if they said the same exact thing as you said. Objective, not even close. These are the most biased, disgusting propagandists pretending to be reporters. I hope I was clear enough.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.